Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Now we will continue our Python course. So far we have covered all the major data structure and couple of algorithms. Now it becomes the right time to discuss about a next thing called as functions. Because if you see any Python code, when you actually people who have worked, they will realize that in big Python codes, we actually deal in functions. We don't deal in writing simple queries. And I will tell you that why functions are important, what are their attributes, and how should you use it. Okay, so in this video, we are going to discuss about the function. So let's go towards the table of contents. That first we will discuss about the functions introduction, then we'll discuss about how to define and call a function, then we'll talk about what are various function arguments present, then what is a return statement, the lambda functions, map and filter, and then we will do some practice questions. So this is the whole I will say whole architecture of this particular video. So let's start with the discussion to the functions. So to discuss functions, let us see where they are actually, where do they come from. So for example, let us say you have a basic query, a basic operation that you need to do. You need to add two numbers. So let us say there is a number a equal to 5, b is equal to 7. Now what you need to do, you need to print the sum of these two numbers. So what will you do? You will create a sum variable c is equal to a plus b, and you will do print c, right? This is the basic structure that you will be doing, and you will get 12. Now imagine that you have to, here a and b are fixed 5 and 7. What if a user wants to test on various numbers, right? For example, right now he's just testing on one pair of numbers, but there can be so many combination of numbers, so many examples, so many attributes, so many instances where a user wants to use this, right? So in that case, suppose you want to do a equal to 6 and 7. What you will need to do, then you'll have to come here 6 and then put it 8 and then run it again. Or what if you will have to just copy it again and again and change the value 10, 12 and then run again. Okay, this is a pretty tedious job, because imagine when you have a big code. For example, let's say you have a code of 10,000 lines. Okay, and if out of 10,000 lines, if you are coding like this, it is very inefficient coding. This will increase 10,000 to at least 50,000 lines, right? If you don't basically optimize your code. So there actually comes the importance of functions, where we create a remember I talked about blueprint, where we create a blueprint, and to that blueprint, whatever number we pass, it just displays us the result. So for example, if I have to write down a function here, what I will do, so I'll write down a def keyword, let's say sum, and then I will pass two parameters a plus ab, right? And I will do return a plus b. Now after this, any user, if he just passes any numbers, he just calls sum and do 2 3, and he will get the value. For example, let's say somewhere down the line, I have to sum two numbers, right? So what I will do, I will just change the numbers like 5 and 10, and I will just call that function and it will give me the result. So you don't need to write this piece of code again and again, and that is where the functions come in. So let's go towards discussing what are actually functions. So a function is a block of organized reusable code. See, reusable code, because here we just saw it's a one line. What if there are codes which are 50 line, 100 line, 200 line? Now you don't want to copy them again and again, right? So what you do, that you create a function around them. So function is a block of organized reusable code that performs a single related action. Function provides better modularity for your application, and so in simple words, it's just a formula. What it does, that instead of doing any activity for a particular numbers, it creates a general formula. Or you can say method, whatever you call, right? So it doesn't matter whatever input you give any input, it will produce you output. Okay, so here, for example, let's say I wanted to add 5 numbers, like 5 pair of numbers, pair 1, pair 2, pair 3, 4 and 5, and let's say each pair has a code of 10 lines. So can you imagine 10 into 5, total 50 lines of code would have been there. But with the use of function, my number of line will not change. My number of line will remain 10. Doesn't matter. I'm using 5 pairs, 6 pairs, or 20 pairs, or 2000 pairs, whatever. My number of line of code will remain same. I just need to call the function and pass the parameters, and it will display me the result. So this is the use of function. Why is it actually beneficial? Okay, so function help in breaking down complex problems into smaller and manageable tasks. They allow us to avoid repetition. As I just spoke, like 10,000 to 20,000 lines of code, it can just bring them to 50 line of code. So this is what function does, making the code more readable. Okay, so for example, let's see a basic example here. You are writing a Python program that calculates the area of shape. For example, you have length and width. You have to calculate area of this rectangle. So what you will do, length into width. Now every time you will have to change. Without functions, you would have to write the same logic repeatedly. With function, you can define a function for each shape and call whenever it is. See, without function, for a rectangle, I wrote the code once. Now let's say there are 100 rectangles. So I'll have to write down this code 100 times. Similarly for circle, I'll have to write that code like 100 circles or 200 times. Now with function, what we can do, we can just define a function here like this for an area of circle or maybe an area of rectangle, where we are passing the parameters and putting the result. And whenever we need it, we just call that function, and the function displays as the result. So this is just the introduction to function, that what functions actually do and why are they helpful. So let's talk about defining and calling functions. Okay, so let's see how to actually write down a function in Python. So remember, in Python, whenever you start your function, you have to use the keyword def. And remember, it is small def, right? So you have to use def. After this comes the function name. Function name. Okay, you will name it. You can name it anything you want. After that, you have to give a bracket inside which you will pass parameters. Remember, parameters are optional. It is not always necessary to call not always necessary to have parameters, but I mean, if you don't pass any parameter, then technically functions are just useless, right? So that is why you have to have parameter, but you can declare without parameter as well. And after this, you have to declare like these two, this semicolon like this. Now comes the main part. After starting the function, you can technically start this inverted quotes, and you can write a definition like what this function is about, right? This is called doc string. This is called doc string. And you can write any text, for example, because there are a lot of functions in a big code, right? So how do you define, how do you get to know which function is doing what? So you do your whatever, technically it's like comments inside a function, right? So you're doing a comment here. After this lies your code block, and the must thing after writing any function is a return statement. A function has to return something. If you don't return, it will give you an error. So you have to return something. It can have any value. So this is the whole structure of a function. That def keyword, this is the first part. Second is the function name. Third is the function parameters. Fourth is this semicolon. After this is fifth is this key string. Sixth is code block, and seventh is return. So function is like, for example, it is a box. Okay, yeah, this is a function. You give it some input and it will return you some output. Okay, so you need to provide the return statement, that what this function is exactly doing. It is returning something. It will return a variable, a string, a list, whatever it is returning, you have to write it down here. And it can be multiple things. We will explore this return statement a lot in this video. So this is just a basic structure of a Python function. So let's read about it. So functions are defined using the def keyword followed by the function name and the parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, you can define parameters if the function takes any. So as I mentioned, parameters are optional. Parameters are not necessary. Function body starts with a colon and is indented, right? So if you the proper indentation needs to be there. So you cannot start statements from here. You have to start it right below the function name. So this is the syntax: function name, parameters, then you pass like this a doc string, where you mention what that function is doing, and then you pass the whatever your statements are. Okay. And so yeah, so return, I'm sorry, return is optional, but I mean, it is good to, it is by far it's a good standard approach that if you return something out of the function to make things clear. Okay, so now if you see def greet, so this function is what it is doing, greets the person passed as a parameter. So what if you pass the name of any person, it will write down a greet message. So what this function is doing, that you print hello, the string that is adding, and it is adding the name. So let me run this function, it gave me this. Now if I do anything, for example greet, and let's say I write down Tom, okay, and I close this, so it will give me hello Tom. Now let's say if I remove this particular thing, it will give me an error because Tom is, it is considering Tom a variable. So here you need to pass it as a string. So then only it will replace. So this is a basic that how to define a function. That is the part. And now how to call a function is just like, to call a function, use the function name followed by as I just explained. Use the function name for like result is there. Add is there and followed by parenthesis, and if there are any parameters, just pass it. Okay, so this is, if the function takes any parameter, it will provide. So this is the basic how to define a function, how to call a function, the basic of the things of a function. So now we will talk about the arguments or the parameters of a function. Okay, so far we have discussed that okay, let there be a function, let there be a function def, then there will be a name, and then there will be some parameters. So what are all these parameters? What are various attributes of this parameter? So there is the code block, and then there is a return word. Okay, this is the structure of a function. So now let's discuss about this parameter. So what are various types of parameters are there? The first or parameter or argument, you can say any word you want to say. So basically these are the values which you pass to the function. Okay, as we mentioned. So they are first is positional argument. So what is a positional argument? Are the most common type. They are passed to the function in the correct order. So for example, let's say this is the function where we are subtracting a, we're doing a minus b. Here order matters. If you change the order of for example 10 and 5 here, for example, the result will be different. So what happens here is that in whatever order you are passing the parameter in the function definition, you have to pass in that particular order only while calling the function. So you cannot do like print, say suppose you do print subtract, you cannot do like 5 comma 10. If you do 5 10, it will result in a negative value, right? So this is what you have to take care. This might sound very obvious to you, but it is not actually. When you'll be dealing with complicated function, then this becomes very important, whether it is a positional parameter or it is just a keyword parameter. So now we come to the keyword parameter. In what happens in keyword parameter is that are passed to the function with the parameter name. So what you actually do here, you didn't mention a is equal to 5 or b is equal to this, right? So what you can exactly do, you can specifically mention, instead of writing down just 5, you just mention that, okay, let's say you say b is equal to 5 and a equal to 10. Okay, then this value will assume the right value. Then it will by default do 10 minus 5 only. So unless you have defined, it will take the by default order only. Okay, but if you think that no, order might vary, then you have to define the value while passing the value in the function. So like here, name and message. And what is the function returning? First it is returning message, then it is returning name. So you have to specifically mention that this is my message and this is my name, and then only it will produce the correct output. So this is the second type of parameter. So first was positional argument, second were the keyword argument. So these are basic concepts. I mean, I think you guys will be able to understand them very easily. Now comes the default argument. What happens that let's say few of the variables are constant, you don't want to change them throughout the course of the function. So if you see there is multiply a and b equal to 2. B equal to 2, you have made it constant here while defining the function only. So it doesn't matter. While calling the function, you don't need to pass b equal to b here. You just need to do 5. For example, let's say I do 5,2, 5,3 here. So let's see what is going to come. Then it is going to replace, because by default you have given the value to be 2. Okay, so if you don't pass anything, if you just pass one variable, it will assume that okay, this a is equal to 5 and b it has taken to be 2. But if you parallelly pass 10 as well, then it will assume okay, the value of b has changed and now it has become 50. So this is the concept of default arguments. So first was so by default everything is positional argument only. Okay, now second thing comes, if you specify the keyword name, the order will change. The third comes default. Default, what happens that if something is not given, for example, let's say in this question where we were doing where we were adding two numbers. So let's say I passed only one value. Let's say I only passed one value. So it will return me an error because too many few, right? The function expects 2 parameters and you have only passed 1 parameter. So to overcome this, what we do, we just do, okay, if something is not given, assume b equal to 2, and then it will, assuming b equal to 2, it will, if something is not given, it will do 5 minus 2 equal to 3. So that is the concept of default argument. And next comes the variable length arguments. So what happens that, let's say you are not, so variable length arguments allow a function to accept an arbitrary number of arguments. So you don't need to specifically tell a function that okay, you are going to have 1 parameter only or 2 parameter only or 3 parameter only. A function might have a, b, c, d, lot of things. Okay, so in those cases this variable length parameter is used. So but the thing is that in this particular function, what it is doing, it is summing all the parameters. So it is calling another function sum. So it is a function inside a function. Okay, so we use star and then we pass arguments. The keyword here is arguments, and after that you just call that function. And if you see, you can pass any number of parameters. Let's say I do 5, 6, 7, and if I just print it, it will give me the sum of everything. So what I have done here, I have taken the star, that is variable length argument. So this is a key concept here, that you can have a number of parameters as well. There you need to define this star ahead. So depending upon whatever your use case is, you use that particular type of parameter in your function. And so now we will discuss about the return statement. So the end of any function happens with a return statement. Now return statement is very important because any function, as I mentioned, it takes an input value and it returns something. Okay, and that value actually you use as input to some other places. So for example, the return statement is used as an exit a function. So as it is not mandatory to have a return function, but it is advisable because a function's whole sole objective is this only, that it takes parameters and it returns something. Return a value to the caller. A function can return any type of data. So like you can return anything. For example, this is squaring a number. So what you're doing, taking a number x and you are multiplying it by itself, x into x, and see the number enter you 4 and you got the number as 6. So why use return statements is that they allow functions to produce a result that can be used by other parts of the program. Okay, so you can, the input of one function, so basically the input of one function, so let us say you have a function. Okay, now this is returning a value, it is returning something, let's say returning something a. Now a next function, this a can be a parameter to some other function. So basically function 2, and then in the parameter you write down the a, which is the output of the function a, and that's how things are built. We will see these things as we code along. So little bit theoretical knowledge here, which is important. So now example where you can return multiple values. You can return single value here and you can return multiple values. For example, you took a, b, then you created a variable sum which is equal to a plus b, then you created a variable difference that is equal to a minus b, and then you return sum as well and return difference as well. Okay, so that's how it will come. So this was the discussion for the basic functions. After this we have lambda and all that we will cover in the next video. So far this is the introductory video to function, like how to declare a function, how to call a function, what is the return statement, what are all the parameters. So what we will do now, we will actually solve 5 questions, coding questions, which are on functions, and then you solve some assignment. And in the next video we will talk about little bit advanced things, which are lambda functions, which are built-in functions like map, filter, reduce. There are 3 more functions. We will cover them in the next video. So let's try to code these 5 particular questions. So let's start solving the question number 1. The question number 1 says define a function that takes a list of numbers and return a new list with each number squared. Okay, so what it is doing, that we have a list, let's say nums is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and what we want to create a function that takes this list and returns a new list with each number squared. So what we want is output a new list. We want which is the square of this. So what we will do, we'll start the declaring a function def, and let's say square, we name it square. And what is the parameter that I'm going to pass inside it? I'm going to pass a list, right? That is the question has asked, a list of numbers. So what I will do, it will be a single, let's say I change this to nums. Okay, and now I will start writing my function. That I don't need to specifically mention the definition, it's option. I know that this is the square of the function. So how to do square? What we will do for a, so first of all I'll declare let's say blank, let's say c is equal to a blank list, right? Now I'll do for a in nums, and I have to do c dot append, and what I'll be appending in c is a into a. Okay, I will do this, and after this the loop is completed, I have to return c. Okay, and now if I run this function, now let's start calling this function square, and I pass the value nums, which I created there. So it returns me 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. So this is the first question where we took a function and we squared it, right? So we are returning c, and that's how we will complete our first question. So now let's see the question number 2. Create a function that takes 2 numbers and return their product. So it is a very simple question here as well. So what we will do, that it is asking 2 numbers and return their product. So what we will do, start def, the function name def, and we are saying product of 2 numbers. Okay, and let those parameters be a comma b. Okay, so what do we need to do? Return their product. So as simple as that, we can simply do return a into b, and that's it. So you just call this function product underscore 2, and let's say I pass 5, 6, it should return 30. It is returning 30. So the question number 2 is also done. Now let us do the question number 3. Now the question number 3 says that write a function that accepts a string and returns the string in a reverse order. So it's let's say I have the string s is equal to I am learning Python. Okay, so what it will do, you have to write down a function. So what you'll do, let's say def reverse, and you are taking an parameter as s. Okay, so what you're doing is that, let's say c is equal to, remember how to reverse any list or any string is using this and -1. Okay, and then we will return c. Now let's call reverse s. See, it got reversed. So that's how you reverse any string. So this is the question number 3. Now let's see the question number 4. Function that takes a list of strings and return a list with the length of each string. Okay, so for example, let's say we have a list of strings here. So a is equal to, or let's say s is equal to, so we have the first value as apple, second as ball, third as, let's say, cricket. Okay, and let's say Denmark. I have 4 strings inside it. So what I want to do, I want to create a function length. Okay, it takes this list s. So what it will do now, let's read the question again. List of strings that returns a list with the length of each string. So technically what we want length of each string. So what we can do is we can do a simple list comprehension that is equal to for example, length of a for a in s. Okay, and simple return c. Now let me run this function. Now let's call it len gth and s. So I'm getting 5477. I'm getting the length of each of the string which is present inside this. So now let's do another question. Question number 8. Write a function that accepts a variable number of arguments and return their sum. So I think we did a similar question here. So let's go on the top. Let me just check it where we were doing parameters, right? The multiple, yeah, args we are doing. So what we do def sum star arguments and we just return the. So for this particular question, 8th number, you can refer to this particular what we discussed, right? You do a star args and you just pass a sum and return it. So that's what in this video about. So basically we have done 5 questions out of 10, and after this we will do the remaining questions, the advance of function little bit, not technically lot of advance, but few additional things which you should know. Our lambda function, map, filter, they are very extremely useful when you do the function things. So okay, so we will cover that particular part in next video, and thanks a lot for watching. Please finish the assignment which I provide along this video, and keep learning. So we are almost halfway down with the course. After functions we have few more algorithms remaining, and then we will start our EDA part. So please buckle up your seats and keep learning. Thanks a lot. Please subscribe to our channel if you like our videos. Thanks a lot.